Hello and welcome back to 1874 in association with Luke Roper. If you use the code TVV20, you'll get 20% off everything Luke have to offer. You might want to wait till payday now because it's the 19th of November. When payday comes, if you want to get yourself some Luke clothes, you can use the code TVV20 and you will get 20% off. You can hear that I'm your host, Dan Bardell, joined by a very special guest today. I've got Jake Entwistle from Scouted with me, and we're going to do a special Morgan Rogers show. I tend to say that every show is special for some reason. They're not really, but this one probably is. It's a great guest. Jake's been on the channel before. We did some stuff in the summer around power forward, which I really enjoyed. And in fairness, Jake, we had this lined up for a couple of weeks, 2-3 weeks. I've had the thumbnail design for about a month, I think. But we didn't realise that when we came to do it, that the kind of Morgan Rogers would be such a heavy topic of discussion in the international break because of this thing that the press have got going with Jude Bellingham.
Yeah, exactly. We were discussing it and trying to find time, and we realised that, well, he's been used sort of as one of Tuchel's go-to guys for the national team. So giving him a couple of games in an England setup to maybe provide contrast with what he's not or not doing at Villa seemed like a good option. And then all of a sudden it's turned into a massive sort of debate about playing Rodgers means Bellingham's bad or Bellingham must play. And as always with the English press, it's gone into completely different avenues beyond what actually happens on the football pitch. So yeah, very much enjoying being able to talk about that part of it rather than the nonsense that goes on. But at least they're both going to the World Cup.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I mean, what great two options to have in that position as well with Tuchel's style of football. He said he wanted to play like Premier League style football. Having those two kind of swashbucklers as the two number 10s completely makes sense and completely suits what he says. And I like a manager that kind of says he's going to do something and then he does it. And it's a great problem to have picking between the two of them. I personally no doubt that Jude Bellingham will be the number 10 come June if he's fit when the World Cup kicks off. But what an option Rodgers is. And I think Tuchel's managed it pretty well actually and has created this competition for places. And Morgan Rogers is a part of that. And as a Villa fan and as an England fan, that's a positive thing.
Yeah, exactly. As you said, Jude Bellingham sort of, 2 seasons ago was front runners for Ballon d'Ors with what he was doing at Real Madrid. And the important thing is, though, as well, Jude Bellingham can do everything. That's what makes him the best player England have, is that you could put him in any role and he's probably going to look good. Whereas Morgan Rogers, specifically, the skills and his strengths that he's strong at, which sounds like a dumb sentence, but what he's very good at, he's extremely good at and probably one of the best. He just is one of those players that maybe has limitations where things can break down. But there'll be certain scenarios at the World Cup. Remember, it's that 48 team. There's going to be a whole, you've almost got double the amount of tactics you'll face, different opponents, more games, which is something that, as we've seen with Premier League matches, you're going to need the squad. Even more opportunities to rest players is going to be important. So there'll be games which Rodgers makes an impact. There'll be games which it might be best for him to just sit out. And the thing about England and why everyone expects us to do well every tournament is because there'll be 23 players in that squad that are quality. So being in that squad in itself is a testament. And then it's about how can you maneuver each game to have the best set of skill sets for the problems that you're going to face.
Yeah, that's England covered then. We're here today to talk about Morgan Rogers for Villa. Jake's been doing some number crunching. I know he's got some data in front of him, as you'd expect. Jake works for Scouted, so that makes sense that he'd have those kind of things. And I come here with absolutely nothing but my mouth and my brain, so I don't know how much of an advantage that is. When we spoke last time, we actually ended up talking about Morgan Rogers, and I don't know how we even ended up on the subject, actually, because we were talking about power forwards at the time. I said at that point, I prefer him for Villa as a left 10. Everyone speaks about him being a central 10, but I think some of his better games have actually been at Villa as a left 10. And you said to me that you like him as a central 10 because the first time you watched him, well, not the first time you watched him, but the first time you saw him in full flow was when he played your team, Arsenal, in that game that Villa lost 2-0 last season, and he absolutely dominated the game. He was brilliant. And I was just saying, actually, he hasn't had a performance really like that since, where defenders have bounced off him and he was compared to Jonah Loma. You actually said something that day about him playing on the right as well.
Yeah, so my big thing about Rodgers and what I think he's best at is, I think he's got one direction. When he's at his best, he's not thinking about retaining the ball or needing to pass it side to side or develop the ball. I think he's very good when you press play and he goes forward. And yeah, the reason we discussed him as in the power forward episode is because you said that because of those abilities to carry the ball at
His
speed, the
attributes.
hulking frame, could he develop in that role? And I think we've learned from that time that maybe he doesn't have quite the sort of aptitude in the box or the ability to get shots away at the end of those dribbles that would probably prevent him becoming a centre forward in the future. He's still young and still would have time to change. But the reason I like him in central areas or off the right is because the more you change your angle as a right footer to go towards the left, the more inverted you get, and it becomes sort of you need to weave more. A good example of someone doing very well in that angle is Doku, who is someone that I've written about a lot. He's one of the most interesting data players because of the sheer volume of stuff that he does. Obviously, there's always but he doesn't score or assist. He can't be good because even if you're doing 10 dribbles a game, what's the value of it if nothing comes from it? This season, he's really upped his game, and you're seeing that getting him away from the touchline. Obviously, he's very good as a touchline winger and can dribble past 4 players, but even moving someone like that centrally to bob and weave and then create those angles to shoot has been very good for City. Whereas Rogers, I feel like he's better on the more orthodox angle, because the more you shift onto your right as a right footer, if you're on your right, you've got straight line runs. And again, that is restrictive. And I understand that in some situations that will make Rogers look bad because you have less ability to manipulate the space. You, as I said, you're only really going one direction. But I just think at his best, and the reason probably Villa always try and play out from the back. Was it against Liverpool they were sort of criticised for not
We didn't
going
adapt.
long when everyone else long? And I think the reason why Emery's so wedded to that is because by baiting teams forward, you're creating those huge spaces for Rodgers. And again, you're saying that you're bringing what you're bringing. You watch Villa every week. I don't watch them every single week, so I could build up an image of what's happening that's not quite happening. So I just think Rodgers is a large space player and also a very direct player. I think inverted wingers now are becoming more and more. You put someone on that side so they can see the whole game and take their time and create angles. He again has the ability to do it, and his data is interesting because he actually is one of the most prolific and frequent through ball passers in Europe.
He's got the most assists in the Premier League in 2024, which always surprises me when I do a stat show every week. And because you feel like his form's not been as good in 2025 as it was in 2024, but you've got the most assists in the Premier League across a whole year. You're doing something very well.
Yeah, and again, it's the relationship with like on pitch relationships, right? Is as someone that is a forward first, I just want to play the ball into the most dangerous areas whenever I get it. I either want to drive into those areas or I want to pass the ball in there. I don't care about how accurate it is. 5 times out of 10, it doesn't matter because at least that's 5. That's effectiveness versus someone that's more efficient that would every pass is a dangerous one. But he's got a runner in Watkins that is only head down running forward, like one of the traits of the power forward that we said, someone that's just going to attack the final line of defense at speed to constantly push teams back. Again, that creates more space for Rodgers if he doesn't pass, but he's got someone where I can play a through ball, even if I know there's going to be maybe a runner for it, and they work together in those traits. And you could maybe argue that if Watkins is coming back or not recovered as well from those injuries and is also a bit off form, then that then has football's a team sport. So if someone that you've got an incredible connection with isn't in their best form, and they were actually one of the reasons why you looked good because of the way that you sort of complemented each other, if they have a downturn in form, that compounds your form, and then that means they're getting less service, and it can be a bit of a downward spiral. So the sort of Villa sort of committing to those two players and probably having them as their best options means that it's hard to then get out of those ruts and probably affects the perception of both players. But they're both still trying to do the same things, I would say.
Yeah, and you mentioned him trying a lot of through balls. I said we were done with England, but actually there's something that's popped into my head as we were talking. When I watch him play for England, I don't know whether this is because he's playing with better players in a slightly different way. I always feel his link-up play is actually better for England than it is for Villa. Like his quick passing, the way he manipulates the ball, the way he finds space. I actually think some of his better games, especially this season, because he did get off to a slow start for Villa, have been for England. So it's almost like he's a different type of player for England than he is for Villa. Am I right in kind of thinking that?
Yeah, well, I was just trying to scan through and look sort of at his England matches during the qualifying, and I was quite shocked that he only had. I don't know if I've misread it, but I could only find one assist in the qualifying.
Yeah, that's probably right. The little turnaround pass. Oh, hello, dog.
That's my dog barking. Someone's at the door. So
we're always happy to have animals on the show. So that's
not when they're loud and yappy like that. So
it's fine.
So I was surprised by that because I again had the perception that he was playing extremely well, and then again that's another reason why goals and assists don't necessarily guarantee sort of you don't. People that score and assist goals can play badly, but they look good because their SOFA score rating boosted by those attributes. But I think you're right, and I think for England we saw Rodgers more as that passer, and I think I said it. I can't remember if I mentioned it since we were recording, but whenever I look at his data, and I have this image of someone that is constantly carrying the ball, bulldozing forward, like I compare him to the guy in Lord of the Rings that blows up Helm's Deep because you couldn't bring him down. He actually that doesn't actually reflect well, or that style of play isn't reflected in his data. He's not some supreme ball carrier that's doing it at 5 to the game. He actually penetrates the area with his passing more often. So, like you said, the situation he has at England, obviously, there's no jeopardy in the games. England didn't even concede a goal. They have complete dominance. There's not as much back and forth. The less sort of pressure on every action to make an impact probably calms him down a bit, and he can flex his sort of technical muscles a bit more. But I still very much think that with England, and again with Villa, it's about partnerships. Like when he's with England, if you play him with Rashford, he looks very good because Rashford will run in behind and has those striking instincts. And again, even like I don't know how they got on when Rashford was at Villa. I can't remember exactly how it was Rashford that went up front, right?
They were there. Yeah, Rashford. He did start off on the left, obviously playing kind of next to Rodgers because Rodgers was playing as the central 10. But as time moved on, Rashford did play the big games up top. Actually, to be fair, Rodgers then kind of probably went to the right because Asensio was playing as a number 10 sometimes. But what you said about him playing on the right actually now makes sense to me. I came onto this show thinking I like him in the left 10. I'm going to come on here and say he should play left 10, not central 10. But what you've said about running in straight lines. Matt, is that lateral movement? Is that right? I always get these things the wrong way.
I always
straight.
Is
that lateral? I don't. Anyway,
I think
straight
lateral
lines
might be side to side, but yeah.
Okay, straight. Forget lateral. Straight lines. It does make sense that he'd be able to do the things that are the strongest bits of his skill set by kind of bulldozing if he hasn't got to cut in and come inside. So actually, what you've said makes sense for central 10/right 10 actually being better than left 10.
Yeah, I just think again, not to sort of just paint him as this guy that can't dribble. I think he can, but you've got much more opportunity to attack very directly on your strong foot. And again, you don't have to go to the byline and cross. You can.
No, because that's what Villa fans hate. It's when it's when Cash isn't allowed to come forward.
Yeah.
Or Concer's playing right back, or we had Dizazi playing right back at stages last season. So then Rodgers automatically becomes, or McGinn sometimes when he goes out there as well. They end up playing as a wide player. But when you've got Cash who's allowed to come forward, Villa aren't blessed with loads of right backs. We've only really got one proper right back, and usually Cash isn't allowed to come forward. But when he is, that can work because you're playing in a more central area.
Yeah, and that's the big key. So wherever he plays, I think Rodgers is best central. I think it's the closer he gets to the touchline, the less effective and the less impressive he is. So whether it is in the sort of left half space and he can still work angles, or there's still that sort of direct route to goal, that could work. I just think if you can be central or central half space, I think Rodgers just staring down the goal, defenders looking at him thinking, I don't know how I'm going to stop this guy when he gets to me. As I said, I don't watch every single Villa game. I try to keep up with as much as possible, but I might be swayed by when you see him on TV, it's usually in those big games in which there are more spaces that open up and he shows those skills. So I appreciate that he's not always successful at doing that, but my perception of his player and what he does well is I would try and get him in central areas as much as possible and try and allow him to be as direct as possible, really.
Have you got anything stand out in the data that you've got? You come here prepared. I've come here with nothing but my brain and my
Well,
mouth, as I've said.
Well, that's the thing is I try to be careful not to cherry pick because
Yeah,
there's enough metrics available even with free to use data that could make someone look good at something or tell them to do. Whereas, and like I said, I believe with my eyes that Rogers is a good player, but when looking at his data, so I recently wrote about Doku's evolution and had lots of metrics, and I've got the whole spreadsheet planned out about how far they move away from the average output. And Rogers is neither extremely above average or extremely below average for a lot of stuff, which again is fine.
does
But
that mean consist like he's consistent, or am
well,
I reading that
it
wrong?
usually means they're well rounded. So an example that is easy to sort of grasp for that as well is that I always use is Declan Rice. Whenever you look at Declan Rice as a midfielder, he won't have like his corners have now inflated his key passes. So
Of
they'll
course, yeah.
always be on social media, big chances created stuff, and Rice will be at the top. And that's because if you put on someone's head in the 6-yard box, it's a big chance. So again, I'm a big Declan Rice fan, but like that's an example of I can make him look like this supreme creative force or impactful when,
Yeah.
and he is, because his set piece taking is the best in the world, but it's a very specific skill. So Rogers, the fact that he's doesn't index extremely heavily into one area means that he's not one dimensional. And the fact that he's not sort of really low and everywhere means that he's keeping up with the average in Europe's top 5 leagues, which is a good level. But the one standout area, and as I said, it's not always about like substance, it's about style as well. The one area that he was the most, and I think for through balls, he is, as I said, the most prolific through ball player in Europe as a
So I think that would surprise Villa fans, either.
yeah.
I think that would surprise them.
And that's purely, as I said, it's because he's set up to play through balls. Because again, it's all about definitions, and a lot of my stuff is free. It's very easy to say someone's top for through balls, but you have to then read definitions. And I think FBref define it as it has to be completed, so that's a good sign in itself. Some sites measure it as long as you get it between two players and it breaks a line, that's a through ball. So through balls themselves, the volume isn't very high either, but I think this was for 25-76. So him and Salah are top with 9 through balls, and this is in a pool of, let me just quickly do. That's a pool of 318 people that have played as a forward. So it's got some wing backs in there. It's got people like Julian Alvarez is up there as well. But Rogers and Salah are top with 9. So that's pretty good company to be keeping. But I think again that he benefits from a striker that is looking to create situations in which a through ball is the best option for your team. So you can always fall down rabbit holes of nuance and like, is someone good because they play through balls, or are they asked to play through balls because the team is set up to do that? Either way, he's doing it, and he's doing it at a level which is only matched by one of the best wingers in the world. So yeah, in terms of data and standout stuff, Rogers is, like I said at the beginning, he also ranks really highly for like percentage of passes as passes in the penalty area or through balls as well, which I've like amalgamated to become like penetrative passes. So Rogers for me carries the ball really well through the final third or towards the box.
Yeah.
And then he actually is one of the most effective players at like breaking the last line with his passes, which, as I said, we've seen a bit at England more. You've seen his ability to sort of play the ball, but I think because it's so arresting when he does ragdoll someone and throws people off, I've been guilty of not probably giving him as much sort of respect for his ability to find those final passes. And again, he might not be efficient at them, and there might be a few through balls that look bad or are overhit.
Yeah.
But I don't think you should ever criticize someone for constantly searching for passes. Again, another example is Bruno Fernandes. Again, every week it's like he's wasteful, he's not, but that guy always tries to play the most difficult and the most dangerous pass, and that's a valuable trait in itself, as long as you can have the safer players around them to make sure you've not got everyone just trying to spam passes into the box.
Yeah, I've always said that about Amy Buendia, and obviously they're two parts of Villa's three off the striker at the moment, is that he gives the ball away, but he's trying to go forward. He's always trying to make something happen, progressing forward. And I guess Villa have then behind that usually got Yuri Tillemans, who doesn't do much wrong in terms of giving the ball away. I wouldn't say he plays it safe at all, because he doesn't, but he's just an exceptional player whose range of passing is phenomenal. One of my favourite things about Scouted, and everyone should check Scouted out. I think it's £5 a month, isn't it, for Scout? There's some great articles on there every week. I've been reading it. Honestly, it's so helpful. Such a great resource when you work in football. I love that you have archetypes for every player, or every position as well. And when you're describing players, you'll come up with an archetype. I don't know whether you come up with those yourself, but I absolutely love that. Is there an archetype for ROGERS?
Yeah. So this is, again, I enjoy making them, and I'm trying to find
great ones. I can't think of any now, but there's some brilliant ones.
Well, I'm trying to find the balance between making 500 where it's not useful, because that means there's so many different styles, and trying to boil them down. And then for wingers, we had very basic, like a road runner is someone that is like the cartoon, is very quick, meeps past players and dribbles and carries, and sort of more closer to your traditional winger. And then you have like safe crackers, which could just be playmakers, and we're just trying to use different names. And ROGERS in this central area, it's funny that we mentioned power forward as well, because the more I've looked at trying to translate that style into metrics, you always do get wingers because of the volume of carries and stuff. But I think they're not archetypes that have been set in stone yet. But I've always used like ballerina and bulldozer as a way to differentiate types of wingers and types of ball carriers. So if you re-listen to the podcast, we've used bulldozing, ragdolling, like battering ram sort of concept for ROGERS. And people that do that with the ball, I've started to call like juggernauts, because
okay, that's a good one.
I just think of literally the Marvel character that Vinnie Jones once did in one of the films, and is able to build up so much momentum that they become an unstoppable force and can run through walls. So again, ROGERS at his best, I think you can't stop him, and he can run through walls, i.e. defenders. But then again, I need to somehow incorporate the fact that he's a very good passer in that. So I have not I've not nailed down the exact style to capture that sort of idea, but the process of development for those archetypes is like, what is their main responsibility or function on a pitch? Like, do they try and retain possession? Do they try and progress the ball? Do they try and penetrate the area? Or are they there to shoot? And then you can achieve all of those through carrying, dribbling, passing, and a few styles. So I sort of briefly touched on it. ROGERS, I feel like, progresses the ball through his carrying, and then he penetrates through his passing. So the archetype would then be combining those and thinking a name that says that in a less nerdy way, basically. Well, less nerdy, I say. I always use video game names, so
I'm happy with that.
Still nerdy, but yeah.
I'll leave that one with you then. When you come up with something, do come back and let us know. And if you were on a Daily Mail podcast now, people would just be purely coming out and they'd just write Jake Entwistle compares Morgan Rogers to Vinnie Jones. That would literally be that would be the tagline. That's not what you're saying at all. It's a character from a film. Well, Jake, it's been fascinating to talk to you again. I love having you on. I know you've only been on twice, but I've loved you coming on both times. Do you want to say anything about Scouted before you go? Because you'll probably describe it and sell it better than I will.
Well, no, I think always testimonials of people that actually read it, and what you said about we're trying to position ourselves as a valuable resource for people that work in football, but at the same time, if you just enjoy playing Football Manager and FIFA, we introduce you to so many
very
players.
Helpful with Football Manager, yeah.
We introduce you to so many players at least once a week. We've got free newsletter on Friday. You don't have to become a paid subscriber to still get value, but the paid value is that you'll get access to all of our brains, essentially, an export of our brains each week, and you should discover the future of football before anyone else. That's our ideal. So if that is of interest, then support is huge for us. It's a very small business, but we're trying to make our way. So appreciate you allowing me to speak about it.
I would love having you on. As I said, it's absolutely my pleasure. So do subscribe. We'll put the link in the description of the video and of the podcast on Spotify and Apple as well. So all that's left to do really is for me to say thank you again to Jake for joining me today.
Thank you very much for having me.
So that's it for another bit of content here on 1874. Thanks again to Jake for joining me today. Love Scouted, love what Jake does on there. So brilliant to have him on as a guest. As a special treat as well, this is good. He's given us a discount code here on the channel. So if you head to scoutedftbl.com/1874, you'll be able to get a 30% discount off an annual subscription. So if you like what Jake's all about today on the channel, which I'm sure you did, and you want to get some more football content in your life, sign up for Scouted. And if you head to scoutedftbl.com/1874, you'll be able to get that 30% discount. I'll put the link in the description on all the content on Spotify, Apple and YouTube as well. Thanks again for all the support on the channel. Try to get some content out over the international break. It's not always easy, but appreciate you all listening and watching nonetheless. Hopefully you've enjoyed what we've had to offer. We'll be getting back into our normal rhythm now with Villa, of course, taking on Leeds. On Sunday, we'll have the normal match preview and we'll have the stat pack as well with AVFC stat. Maybe something else in the lead up to Sunday as well. Who knows? Thanks for all the support that you give the channel. I would like to give a little bit of a shout out to the people that have headed to buy me a coffee. I'll do that again. The people that have headed to buymeacoffee.com/Dan Bardell and donated to the channel. As I mentioned, we've had a few sponsor mishaps in the last kind of 6 weeks, which has affected the channel. Not great for me with a baby on the way and life being really, really expensive, as we all know. So people have been really generous on there. If you do want to donate to the channel, no pressure at all. If you head to buymeacoffee.com/Dan Bardell, you can make a donation. But as I say, I don't expect it. Just if you want to and you really, really enjoy the content and you feel passionately about it, then if you can, that helps the channel and it helps me being honest as well at the moment. Don't think I've got anything else to say really, except for if you've watched on YouTube, subscribe with your post notifications on, give us a like and leave us a comment. On Apple and Spotify, give us 5 stars, leave us a review, leave us a comment. If you've switched over from YouTube to Spotify video, let me know in the comments, because I would like to know how many people have switched over, see if that's affecting the numbers in any way. But as I said in a couple of pieces of content ago, numbers are really, really strong at the moment across all platforms. So I really, really appreciate all the support. I need to get my wife to do some content as well, don't I said we'd do a quiz with her and we haven't done that yet. So maybe I'll try and get that out before the Leeds game as well. If there's a demand for it, let me know in the comments if that's something you'd like to see. Round 2 of the quiz with Jenna Bardell. Have a great rest of your day. And yeah, as always, an up the Villa from me. Up the Villa.